Did you just finish a ranked gaming session and find yourself at nearly the exact rank you started at despite grinding 10 games in a row? Do you now find yourself overwhelmed with regret and disbelief, realizing that you could have utilized your time far more wisely, or perhaps simply caught up on that much needed sleep you had promised yourself? Don't worry, as a former ranked addict, we've all been there before. League of Legends is not an easy game. There are over 150 champions to play, over 150 items to purchase, and countless passive and active abilities to understand. All that complexity is a key reason as to why we love this game so much, since there's always something to improve upon. In my opinion, there is simply no other video game out there that can satisfy my competitive itch like League can. This leads to a crucial question. How can we elevate our League of Legends gameplay, but do it without that sinking sensation of realizing that the time spent may not yield the anticipated progress we expect? In this video, I'll unveil the ultimate key to climbing both efficiently and effectively, which actually has nothing to do with gameplay itself, but instead it's about mastering the mental game. Now, before we discuss the mental aspect of League, I want to preface that there are many ways to get better at this game. It is very possible to simply grind out thousands of games a season and eventually something should click. But this method of spamming games takes incredibly long and is nearly impossible to achieve unless playing League of Legends is your full-time job, such as being a streamer or a pro player. But for the rest of us who have to juggle different responsibilities such as school, career, a social life, and want to still play competitively with limited free time, the most efficient way to climb is simply to play only when your mental is at its peak state. This means you are able to make consistent high percentage plays and are unaffected by actions that are outside of your control. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm nowhere close to being the most mechanically gifted support player in my elo bracket. I often suggest to play champions that even the oldest of players can excel on. Instead, my competitive edge in League of Legends comes from simply not tilting. Tilt refers to a state of emotional and mental frustration that adversely affects a player's performance, leading to impulsive decisions, diminished focus, and ultimately subpar gameplay. Initially, tilt may manifest as mild irritation or annoyance, but it can quickly escalate into a full-blown emotional breakdown, impairing judgment and proper decision-making. In League specifically, it can be so easy to succumb to tilt since you're playing a team game from 5 unique perspectives with limited communication and exchange of information. One specific action from a team member may result in 5 unique perspectives on whether or not that action was the correct move. This dichotomy in perspectives will undoubtedly elicit negative emotions, causing us to make reckless and overly aggressive decisions. Eventually, the chances of subconsciously choosing high-risk yet low-reward plays exacerbates immensely, causing a game that started out relatively balanced to be instead heavily against your favor. You stop thinking about what the next best play is and instead overly focused on your teammate's mistake. Your brain only has so much capacity to hold information, and if we are dwelling on negative thoughts instead of staying present in the moment, your performance suffers, leading to a downward spiral of frustration and further tilt. Recognizing the signs of tilt and acknowledging its influence on one's gameplay can be difficult while in game. This is why it's important to not immediately re-queue after a loss and instead take a breather between games to see if you can maintain emotional equilibrium. Resilient players view negative gaming experiences as opportunities for growth rather than insurmountable obstacles. As my good friend Kelly Clarkson always says, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I guarantee that if more players had the ability to control their emotions, maintain composure, and thus avoid tilt, they would climb much further in a much faster time frame. Being able to play at a level where you're making non-emotional decisions will provide you with a competitive edge you've never experienced before. Building a strong mental to avoid tilt and continuous loss streaks takes disciplined practice. Just like getting better at League of Legends, there is no easy overnight solution. However, there is one concrete rule that I'd like to share that has helped me to maintain my composure and has been a significant factor as to my relatively quick climb to Masters. The lose one and done rule. During a ranked gaming session, I essentially keep playing if I'm winning, But as soon as I lose one game, I take a mental break and call it a day. If it was a particularly interesting loss, I will spend time reviewing each death to see what I could have done differently to prevent the death from happening. If it was a particularly difficult laning phase, I'll also review how I could have positioned in lane differently and how I could have better applied pressure for my bot lane partner. Spending time reviewing mistakes is enormously more helpful than queuing up for another game and potentially repeating those very mistakes. However, since I am semi-addicted to this game, I'll probably still need at least one more game to satiate my thirst for playing League. Therefore, I have doubled this method and am currently climbing on 2 separate accounts. For whatever reason, being able to play on a fresh account refreshes my mental much more quickly than continuing to play on the same account. You essentially now have devised a system where you can only win streak within a 24-hour period, and you avoid mega loss streaks which could derail the limited free time you have for the rest of the night. And of course, if you've already satisfied your League craving with a nice 3 or 4 game winning streak, feel free to log off. Personally, I'm okay with ending my gaming session on either a good win streak or guaranteeing that I've avoided a loss streak entirely. Now, is it possible that you simply end up losing 7 games over an entire week? Absolutely. But if this scenario does happen, it more than likely means that you wouldn't have climbed anyways if you had spammed these 7 games in an entire evening session. Instead, this outcome would most likely reveal that you're probably playing at a level that might be a bit too difficult for you, and that you should spend some time figuring out what you're actually doing wrong. There is a core concept you are missing from League of Legends, and it's up to you to figure out how to improve independently or by reaching out to a high elo resource like this channel. Of course, if you're still having fun just playing League of Legends for 12 hours a day and don't mind being hard stuck, that's perfectly okay too. After all, it is just a game. Ultimately, the most important thing isn't necessarily your rank, but it really is whether or not you've enjoyed your time playing League of Legends. However, for those of us who are a bit more competitive and want to challenge ourselves by reaching a new elo of gameplay, try the one and done rule and see if your gameplay will improve. Taking the time to review your single loss at the end of a gaming session will propel you up the ladder at a much more efficient rate. You'll guarantee that you'll always be playing in a good mood and won't let any negative emotion from a previous loss carry over to your next game. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to hit that like button and consider hitting that subscribe button too. It really does help. If you have any mental tips you'd like to share when playing League of Legends, please let me know in the comments below.